Imagine playing sport at an elite level, professionally, and for your country. Imagine the dedication, commitment, and focus required to achieve that level. Imagine having it all taken from you in a moment's stumble, when your body didn't do what it was supposed to do. A stumble that revealed a hateful underlying condition that was going to change your life and would make walking, never mind elite sport, an almost impossible challenge. What would you do when the doctors told you that you'd spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair? My guest today decided that they would aim for the impossible rather than accept that fate. Their story is one of hard, grinding progress against the odds, resilience, stoicism, love, and inspiration. Prepare to meet Andrew Patterson. Hello and welcome to Trading Up, the business and entrepreneurship podcast from the Irish News, presented by me, Jim Fitzpatrick, and produced in association with EY. And today I'm delighted to welcome Andrew Patterson to the podcast. Andrew, I'm not sure, is it Andrew? Is it Andy? Is it Pado?
Mostly Pado.
Mostly Pado. Yeah. That's what you were known as when you were playing cricket.
Yeah, it is. I have to say, actually, this is quite surreal being here, because I've obviously seen you and watch you in Spotlight and stuff on TV, and I would kind of, liken it to when I was playing cricket, and I went in and was playing a game for Surrey, and Alex Stewart, it was a second team game up at Northants, and he was coming back from injury and playing for England the next week, and I forget why I didn't have my keeping gloves, but I didn't have them there with me, and he had his with him, and he gave them to me to use, and that's someone that I looked at as a role model to try and mirror and achieve what he's achieved, or what he achieved in the cricketing stage. And it's a great sort of never let the facts get in the way of a good story. I would say that, I kept him out of keeping in the second team, even though it wasn't sort of true, him coming back just because of injury to get a bit of batting practice.
So, so you're thinking back to that moment now, and tell us about the cricket, because, and I think I was saying to you beforehand, it's still a mystery to me. I still try and follow cricket, and I'm completely lost because I never played it as a kid because of my upbringing. It wasn't offered in school, but it's a wonderful looking sport. But you played for your country. You played for Ireland. You played professionally as well, and that is so rare. So as I was saying, to get there takes a lot of dedication. How much did you love it?
I love playing it, and never actually, to be honest, I sort of wanted to always play by Ireland and go in that faster direction, but I never really looked at playing professionally. It kind of sort of stumbled upon it. Mm-hmm. It was actually a professional from South Africa that was playing for Muckmore, Rudy Bryson, who was pro at Surrey in the county championship when Wacker Eunice was playing as well, and he was when you used to have two pros, and I battled against him. I can't remember how many runs and stuff I got, but he advised Surrey to then have a look, and it sort of snowballed and went from there. So in terms of the direction I was going to go, I kind of got there in the end, and I always looked at being a teacher, which I did after playing the cricket anyway, but I never really envisaged playing the cricket professionally.
But you did get paid to play it.
Yeah,
you were good enough.
It was, that time was, I would sort of liken it to, playing sport with your mates and getting paid for it. Do you know what I mean? So you're almost like when you were younger and your mates, knocking your door and get you to come out and play and do whatever, playing football, rugby, cricket, whatever it is, in the streets and stuff. Doing that for a living and getting paid was awesome.
Yeah.
And I would say to so many people that if you can reach that level and do that, then go for it and do it, because you have a great lifestyle when you're doing it. Just be aware. Obviously, it's kind of like a bubble. So when you come out of it, you need to be a certain way and have certain things behind you, because you're almost starting a game where your contemporaries that you maybe came out of school or university with were starting off on their journey with the career at like 22, 23. You're maybe starting on that journey when you're like 31, 32. So you need to have a certain mentality when coming out of that.
Yeah, and that as we can see with so many, sports people, whether it's the rugby or the cricket or the football, they need to think about that, because you can have that great time, but then you need to plan for what comes next. And that's, regardless of what we're going to talk about in terms of what you've had to face. But also, just before we get into that, you said that it was always about maybe playing for Ireland. The focus to play cricket to the level at which you'd get selected for your country, and to get to play at that level against these other, teams where cricket is such a big part of their sporting culture as well. What was that like?
At first, it was, especially when I went over to England and stuff, to see you sort of as the Irishman that's come over and playing, and there's a lot of sort of joking behind it, and Ireland played cricket and stuff, I guess. But then when they see you sort of play and what you can do and stuff, that becomes less and less as you're going through. What I would say in terms of sort of the dedication to get to that level, as a lot of sports people and business people, wherever it is, know that you have to make a lot of sacrifices. So there were times when I was sort of, 16, 17, 18, and didn't go to parties, wherever it was, because I was maybe playing the next day or training that weekend, wherever it was. So there's a certain amount of sacrifice you have to make if you want to make it to that level.
Yeah, and you were going to school, BRA, North Belfast. I was down the road in St Malachy's, maybe a few years ahead of you. And I suppose that's that was during the late 80s when you were sort of finishing off in school then.
So when I went to BRA, it was 87 to 94, roughly about that. And I can remember actually all I can sort of take from knowing St Malachy's was that you guys were really good at playing basketball.
Well, funny, I play a bit now, but I didn't then, and I should have done. Yeah, there were some really good players at the basketball in St Malachy's, but no cricketers as far as I remember. But look, the thing is, you did enough work. You had enough dedication. You loved it enough to get to the stage where you were able to play with your mates and get paid. I mean, let's face it, that's a dream. Even though at the back of your head you're saying, I need a plan for, teaching, whatever it is that comes after this. But there was that moment that I referenced earlier there at the start. There was a stumble. Tell us about that, a stumble that revealed something that changed your life.
So it was a cricket game I was playing for the MCC, and I was running between the wickets and stumbled, fell and broke my thumb. And I spoke to people afterwards, and I just thought it was me getting older and not being able to do as well as I did before. And they were like, "Nah, mate, you looked awful. You need to go and see about it."
So they noticed just from that, they could tell there was something amiss.
So in terms of the way I was running and stuff, and they were like, "That's not right." So I went back and forth to hospital for about 2-3 years, seeing different consultants, ears, nose and throat specialists, because it was all, they were looking at balance at that stage. And kind of in a way, when I got diagnosed in March 2013, it was a weight off my shoulders, because I knew what I had and what you could do then going forward. I could then sort of plan for it and strategize what way I'm going to actually take this challenge on. Whereas before it was a little bit in limbo.
And what was the diagnosis then?
So the condition is called Hereditary Spastic Paraplegia. It's a neurological condition where the signals from your brain don't work properly to get my legs to move. So like I'm sitting here, you're getting your hands to move and your brain's sending those signals for that to happen. It doesn't do that with my legs.
Mm-hmm. And that, when the doctors told you about that, what did they say?
So the doctors, when they told me, and they had to then pinpoint the specific gene, and when they did, they said, in no uncertain terms, you're going to be permanently in a wheelchair. That's when I was like, right, I need to actually try and sort of face this head on. They've said, you're going to be in a wheelchair. I actually, in myself, the way I am, sort of my makeup and stuff, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be in a wheelchair permanently. And it was, God, until sort of 2018, it was only my sort of close friends and family knew I had the condition. And it wasn't until I needed walking aids to get around, I let people know what was going on with me. And it was in the summer of 2022 where an ex-colleague friend of mine contacted me out of the blue to see how I was. And he said to me, a friend of his had just been back from America, having had an operation with a condition similar to mine. Long story short, it was exactly the same condition. So after loads of financial upheaval, which actually my eldest daughter ran 2 half marathons over consecutive weekends and raised over 25 grand. And the Professional Cricketers Trust, they helped out financially to get there as well, and through different loans and things, I was able to go out to St. Louis in America and have the operation.
Wow. So your daughter at that age, what age was she running these half marathons for you?
She would have been 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
And let's just get the picture here. You've been given this life-altering news of your diagnosis. You spend a number of years where you were able to sort of disguise that. You didn't tell, obviously, your closest family knew.
Yeah.
But you weren't telling others about it because you didn't need to tell them at that stage.
Yeah.
But you're teaching at this point.
Yeah, I was teaching at that point. And it was actually when I went and watched, I can remember going and watching the Open when it was here in Portrush the first time round, and using crutches to get around the course with my dad and my brother. And I bumped into loads of different people. And actually, in a way, it was quite nice that I was able to tell them and word sort of got out back here in Northern Ireland that was where I was and what was happening. Because in a bizarre type of way, that actually when it got out, what was happening going on with me, so I didn't have to keep telling people and keep saying the same thing to different people. You know, people sort of like, what's wrong with you? What's happened? If you got an injury or wherever it was, that made it a lot easier, actually.
Yeah, once the word spread a wee bit and you didn't have to keep explaining it. But you've got the family. You're living in England. You're teaching in a school, and you're now facing this big change. Tell us about the family, because it seems to me, from what I've seen and read, and not just your daughter running 2 half marathons consecutively over a couple of weeks for you to raise the money, it seems like the family has been really key in supporting you through this. So for them, it's a big change for you, but a big change for them too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say I'm quite lucky in that my wife is pretty positive with things and always had that outlook. And when I was diagnosed with this and what we could do going forward and getting the operation and stuff, that she was like, right, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to move forward with it. And that sort of mindset, it almost looking at what from the outside looking in is a negative situation, taking the positives from it and opportunities. And for me, actually, a few years down there now, the opportunities that I've had to go out, which I really enjoy doing, speaking at places, speaking at businesses, schools, charities and stuff, and different events. I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not been in this situation or I not been diagnosed with my condition. So there's a lot of things in terms of how you look at things. And I would say now I've got 3 kids, that what they've sort of been through with what has happened to me is making them see life slightly differently in terms of how you look at things and how they view things, which to me is a huge, huge positive.
Hi, I'm just interrupting for a quick minute to thank you for being part of the Trading Up community. It's really appreciated. I think we're building a real community of business and entrepreneurship learning. So remember to hit follow or subscribe. It makes a big difference. And please drop me an email on tradinguppodcast@gmail.com. And while I have you, just a quick word about our sponsors, EY. EY bring the right people and technology together to help businesses grow, build trust with stakeholders, and shape a better working world. And EY help businesses shape the future with confidence through trust, innovation, and the power of its people. Because building a better working world starts today. Thanks again. And now back to the conversation. So there's clearly, before we get to the journey to make that journey literally to the States to get the operation, and then the journey after that operation through rehab. Before we talk about that part, but the journey you've gone on with your family. And I saw a nice video that you played. You had an event yesterday. We were talking to people in Belfast, a breakfast organised by Wilson Nesbitt solicitors, and very warmly received, and a great talk in front of an audience there of their clients and some others. But you played a great video, and your daughter featured in it. But what I liked about it was the kind of back and forth chat, and clear that there's an understanding going on there. It's not just. And I've seen, other people coping with situations like this, and everybody does it in different ways, but maybe it's much more internalized. Yeah. But you've just somehow managed to share that, and perhaps it lifts your burden a bit, but everybody's kind of chatting about it, working towards the same ends and so on, that kind of support.
I would say it's what you sort of said there, Jim, lifting the burden a bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have done in the past, be a volunteer with Samaritans, and listen, just being able to unburden stuff really helps people, and in my position has helped me a lot. So that, I wouldn't sort of say that the first few years of this were easy and everything's rosy, and rose-tinted glass and things are brilliant. But being able to actually lean on my family and tell them, and them support me in getting through this, has helped a huge deal.
Yeah, so it's a real kind of openness. And so the operation, and we hear about operations for different conditions, and usually quite often it is America because of the medical system there and so much being done in different areas. But this is quite a radical operation that you've had because your condition, as you say, the doctors expect you to be in a wheelchair. They think it's just predetermined. It naturally progresses in a bad way. What does the operation do to interrupt that?
So basically, the operation actually is done with kids with cerebral palsy, and it takes the spasticity that you get in your legs and your body and stuff and stops that progress and stops that degeneration. And the guy that does the operation, he seen that there was a sort of correlation with people with my type of condition and how that could potentially help them. And, he did the first one back in sort of early 2000s. And there's about 50 people that have had it. They're around about, 30s, 40s, 50s. And it just helps a lot. What has happened with me is that my legs are kind of like, when you're in pins and needles, mm-hmm. and you come out of pins and needles, it's like numb, but you can still feel it.
Yes. Uh-huh.
It's kind of like that all the time. And that's almost a trade-off for trying to learn new pathways to be able to walk unaided again and not be in the wheelchair all the time. So, I can get around, 30, 40 meters on crutches. And that makes such a difference, not having to be in the wheelchair all the time for getting into places, whether it's, restaurants, bars, with the family, whatever it is, and getting around, getting out again. So not having to worry about that makes a big difference.
And so effectively the operations involves looking at those pathways, the nerves that into your legs that that connect with your brain where there's a degeneration and maybe something that'll progress. And they sever them. Is that the way it works?
Yeah,
What was it?
they severed the nerves in the spine. So it was 2/3 of the nerves in the spine got severed.
So basically, but in a sense, what you're saying there is, for a normal kind of situation, if you didn't have this condition, what you're saying is that you're cutting off the use of those nerves.
Yeah, you're almost, as I said, you're almost learning new pathways to try and walk in. Again, I would liken it to when we were younger and infants, toddlers, going from walking to crawling, or from crawling to walking, and the pathways you'd learned to do that. It wasn't a straightforward journey. You push through, you persevere through to get to where you could walk confidently. That's what I'm trying to do with this. Learn almost new pathways again to try and do that and walk confidently.
So it's a heck of a roll of the dice, isn't it, though, to say, I'm going to let you cut the nerves in my spine and I'm going to reprogram myself to do something with new pathways which aren't there yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to that toddler and find my way to walk again.
Yeah, it is a bit, and sort of the way I looked at it, and this is sort of perspective as well, in that I was going to be in the wheelchair regardless. By having this and pushing on myself, and it's me that's in control of what I can do and how much work I do and stuff, I know that hopefully I can get to a stage where I can walk unaided and it's in my control to do that, whereas before it wouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm. And you can look around, because there's 50 people have had this operation. Can you look at other examples where people have progressed?
The guy that, refer back to my friend that ran me up, the guy that had the operation before was very successful, and he's helped a lot in terms of just bouncing things off him and stuff. And one of the things that, and we were chatting about this earlier actually, one of the things that I've kind of learned with him is that not doing the rehab and stuff when I've been like really busy, more busy with our lives and stuff like that, when I'm doing different talks and things and having to travel around doing that, I haven't done as much rehab, and I've noticed the difference. He was the same with his job, and long story short, he fell down the stairs, broke both his legs, and had to then rehab with that, plus everything else that was going on with him. And he was like, regardless of what you do not skip your rehab, do not skip your sessions, build it into your daily life, whatever you're doing, so you can get to it and do it all the time. Because, use me as an example, I didn't, and look what happened.
And of course, you're now using this to talk to people such as the audience in Belfast, people who, may never think that they're going to face a condition like this, but you think there are transferable skills, mental skills they can use, resilience they can draw upon that will help them in their normal lives.
Oh yeah, big time. It's kind of you think that it's never going to happen to you, but unfortunately life, doesn't come with a map. It's not a straight line. Things will get put in your path and you have to sort of adapt and move forward. So the way I would sort of look at things and the talks and stuff I would do is about, yes, learn from your past, learn from things that have gone on. So for instance, if you're in a position that you thought was, the be all and end all, and hopefully when you look back, it wasn't, use that knowledge and experience next time you find yourself in a similar situation, and you can actually progress and move forward and get on with this. So learning from, yes, what has happened, but kind of with me in this condition, not looking back like, oh, I'd love to be able to do this still. I can't do this. When I started looking at what I could do going forward, honestly, it changed things around for me so much and made things so much more powerful, and my life in general having a little bit more of a purpose going forward with things.
And there was a couple of things you said which kind of stuck with me. One of them was about having, a positive attitude. And I'd like you just to kind of explain that to me, because maybe we come from a slightly cynical culture here sometimes.
Yeah.
We have a bit of fun with it, of course, and people laugh and we kind of joke about things. But we think of overly positive people. We tend to think maybe that's like more an American culture. So explain to me what you mean by that and how it does fundamentally make a difference and how you think other people can use that.
So the three things that I would say and all the talks do that are sort of the basis would be, as you said, perspective, how you look at things, your response to any situation you're in. You're the one that controls your response, and your purpose, your why. And in terms of perspective, thinking about like when we're born, we're taught a negative culture. If you think about it, like how many times have you had a bad day or negative experience and you've told people about it? And also then compare that when you've had a good day or positive experience, generally you don't tell people about it. So that becomes more of a culture. Perspective-wise, it's looking at everything that happens, right? What's the opportunity in this? I would say with me, like at the minute, I'm learning a new skill of sit-down skiing. And it's something I really enjoy. And it's also something I would never have done had it not been for my condition. So that in itself, I would see as an opportunity to do that. I was in the slopes at Easter Pass and loved it. It was great just being in the mountains and stuff again. It was something I never thought I'd be able to do.
I've seen, actually, lucky enough to go skiing a few times, and I've seen the guys doing the sit-down skiing, and it must be pretty hairy. You're sitting so close to the ground.
Yeah, it is.
You need to have, you need to be brave, shall we say, to do that.
You're so close to the ground. It's like, I know, it's like go-karting type thing. You're so close to the ground, you think you're going so much faster than what you are. Because when I look back on videos in the slopes, I was like, surely I was going a lot faster than that. Who slowed that down? But the good thing with that, I went out to the mountains, to Hemel Hempstead, to the indoor snow centre, and met Billy Munger, that did the comic relief triathlon.
Oh, yes.
Lost both his legs.
Yeah.
And actually seeing him and speaking with him, he's really good at it. And his outlook and things is kind of where I would want to be and coming from. Because he looks at everything that's happening with him, with the skiing, with the opportunity, obviously, doing the triathlon and being with comic relief. He was like, none of this would have happened had I not been in the position where I had that crash in the car.
Yes. And so you can take that, you've got the perspective and you've got the purpose.
Yeah.
And you can say something such as you've alluded to there, which is you wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
I again, we think about miracles and we think about how we would want things to be different. But you're very accepting.
You kind of almost got to in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's the other alternative? I can actually remember one of the talks I got asked a question in the question and answer session afterwards. Would I change what I've done or achieved not to have my condition? And I could remember answering, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't have played for my country or a professional sport or met my wife or had my kids or met so many good people along the way on my journey. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's either sort of, you've got to look what's in front of you and what you can do. There's no point me sort of wallowing in self-pity. How's that going to help me or anyone else around me? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And to go off on a bit of a tangent, when I went out to have the operation in America, there was lots of stress with like the money and time scale and different things. But I made sure that I actually remained as calm as I could so that wouldn't feed into my kids in terms of the stress and stuff. So I didn't want them to actually then mirror sort of what I was doing so that when they inevitably deal with stress, they deal with it a lot better.
And that's very thoughtful of you, to say the least, to be able to think of that in not just be entirely focused on your situation, your operation, your rehab after that, then to be able to consider everybody else. But then, and maybe this is a lesson for everybody, we live in these communities, whether it's a family community or beyond. And so we all, if we consider each other and respect
Totally.
each other, then we can learn from that.
That's one of the things I've learned in the last, 10, 15 years going through all this, that if you can help someone and it doesn't cost you anything or no skin of your nose, then do it. And if more people do that type of stuff, that will spread. It's like ripple effect. That will spread through lots of different environments, different cultures, different, as you said, environments that people are in, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whatever it is. And that will hopefully then spread a bit more positivity and make, it sounds a bit airy-fairy, but make the world a better place.
Well, we kind of know as well from experience, don't we? Like when you meet somebody and afterwards, if you feel a bit lighter, if you feel a bit happier, you're going to want to meet that person again.
Yeah.
And there are people that leave you with a smile on your face when you leave the room. And then there are others you think, what's wrong? And then you realize they've drained the energy out of you.
That's one of the things actually I would say is that there's people that are givers and takers. You be a giver. So you're giving out positive energy and stuff like that. And again, this is not airy-fairy, but, as you said, when you walk out of a room, you're maybe like drained, you think, oh, why was that? And then all of a sudden you're sort of going, probably because they were like this, they said this, there wasn't anything positive coming out. And to harp back sort of on perspective, I'm just thinking that about a month ago when my mum and dad were over in London with me and I was taking them around the M25 to meet my brother who meets me halfway. He lives in Ipswich. And perspective-wise, my mum hates the M25. And
most people do, I think.
Yeah. All she saw, though, was bad driving because that was her perspective. So when we got out of the car and we were swapping over with my brother, she was like, that was a nightmare journey. And I was like, what are you talking about? No, it wasn't. All I saw was people letting you in and, because I wasn't looking for the bad. So in terms of the same journey and people's perspective on it, it was two ends of the scale.
That's really interesting. So yeah, and as you say, exactly the same journey, your experience entirely different, framed because of how you were looking at it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of, was it C.S. Lewis who had this, one of his books was the everybody's in the same location, but for some of them it's heaven and for some of them it's hell. It's kind of how they see it.
Totally.
And you can go now in talks and tell people about your experience and talk about things like that, and talk about resilience. And people get a lot out of that, don't they?
Yeah, they do. The really good thing for me is that generally afterwards, there's a lot of people come up at you and talking through things. And they weren't maybe as, confident to say things in front of the crowds and stuff like that. But they come up to me afterwards and talk through different positions, whether it's in professional life or personal life and what they're going through. And I wouldn't profess to have all the answers, but hopefully I can help them deal with what they see as a hard situation.
And I noticed one of the questions yesterday, somebody was asking you about, perhaps a book recommendation or whatever, and you were saying you're not a major book person, your learning is from experience. And I think we do live in a world where there are a lot of gurus in inverted commas and people standing up charging money for advice, life coaches, etc. But when you're offering something quite real, I think.
The huge thing for me is that, as you said, I wouldn't be a book person. I haven't read stuff. Everything that I would say and talk about comes from what has happened, and seeing in the past life being a teacher, seeing people coming in and giving talks to the sixth form or the kids, and the ones that resonate more are the ones that have actually been through things rather than spouting something and being able to talk well in terms of something from a book or something like that.
Yeah. One of the things I think probably is quite hard though for people, let's say you've got a 9-to-5 sort of job and I come into one of your talks for inspiration. But I'm not really looking to climb Everest. I'm just looking to basically get more out of my job, maybe get a pat on the back from the boss the odd time, deliver things a bit better. Or maybe I'm running my own business. And again, the actual day-to-day could be mundane enough. But I've got to find ways to A, enjoy it, and B, make it better. But some of the things that are required are these kind of incremental changes, or to do something just that little bit better every day. And it sort of reminds me a wee bit of your physio and maybe the challenge of having to sort of fight through that and know that the results will be there long term. How do you get that motivation to do that, day by day when you don't see the results immediately, but they are longer term? And maybe this is something that mentally we can apply to other things that aren't quite the same.
It's like, I know, it's kind of a paradox in terms of the progress, that there are stages that you won't progress at all, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. So you've almost got to trust your process, trust what you're doing, and at different stages you will see progress. I've learned that, as you say, in my rehab, in that there has been stages where it's plateaued and nothing's happened. I'm like getting really frustrated. Why can't I do this? Why hasn't this happened? I'm doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, you have an increase and you have making a little bit of progress. And this is where I would advise as well. In terms of being able to look back, I've got a few videos of me doing rehab and different things in the early days and looking back at what I could do then and what I can do now. And it's almost, you forget how far you've actually come and what you can do and what you couldn't do before. So I would advise, like, if anyone can keep a journal, diary, anything like that, just to see your progress and see actually how far you've come.
Yeah, so it's that having the record to know. It's a bit like, I suppose, the people who maybe go to Slimming World or whatever it is, and they've got a before and after picture. To some extent, if you're in business or in work and you're thinking about making incremental progress, which will build up to something substantial over time, you've got to record it so that you know when you get there or when you get further down the road, you can look back and say, look at how far I've come.
It's like having, the goals. The ultimate goal is further down the line. What can you do to get there? It's small little steps that'll take you through. So not taking your eye off where you want to be, but almost not thinking about that all the time in terms of the progress you're making. As I said, just small steps that will get you to that stage at the end. I'd be like, I know too, when I was playing the sport and getting to represent my country, there was little stages that I would go through. That was the end goal. But there was little things along the way, scoring runs here, doing this, or wherever it was, to get to that stage. It wasn't something that just happened within like that. And that's unfortunately, with younger ones now coming through, they want things to change just like that so many times.
Yeah, so you can't obviously climb the mountain in one go.
Yeah.
Step by step. And it is about finding those little things that will motivate you to do it each time. And I suppose when you look at some of the stuff to do with motivation, and you mentioned kids, and obviously we've all got so many distractions now, and kids have got the mobile phones and we've got all the stuff online that could watch anything you want at any stage.
I would hate to have grown up in that era.
Yeah, very distracting, absolutely. So, but it's all about instant reward, therefore. And we're sort of genetically programmed to go for the easy option. So, in some ways, any success usually comes from overriding that lazy instinct that we're built with.
Well, for me, I would say, a a lot of the things I was saying, different talks and stuff, is doing hard work now to make your life so much easier in the future. And I use, as an example, me and my rehab and 5K walks I've done. I did a 5K walk last summer at Victoria Park, and an average running time of that is about 30 minutes. I did it using a 3-wheeled walker, and it took me just under 9 hours. I then did another 5K walk at Easter just past for a charity in Your Harmony, which supports ADHD and autistic kids, and did it in half the time. So for me, it shows that the hard work I'm putting in is paying off, and that can be said of any situation in life. Doing what is hard now will make things easier for you in the future. Don't take the easy option now to make your life more difficult going further down the line.
And you did say yesterday as well where people need to prioritise their health.
Yeah.
It can sometimes feel like a self-indulgence. I kind of know myself, and I've tried over the last couple of years to be perhaps a bit more mindful about my own health, do more exercise, and I've enjoyed it. But at times, when you've maybe booked a session to go to the gym, or you're going to do something sport related, or you want to go for a long walk, or you want to get out into the open air, but maybe work is calling or something else is knocking on your door, and you think, we're, again, culturally maybe, we're sort of programmed to say, well, I need to go and do that work thing, or I need to answer this email. It feels maybe like a self-indulgence to say, no, I need to actually switch that off, prioritise, go for the walk, go for the run.
Yeah.
So what would you say?
So it's like you said, prioritise in the first and foremost. I would say if it's a work thing, wherever it is, what's the worst case scenario? What will happen if you don't do X, Y, Z, whatever it is? And if it's not really dramatic, I would say prioritise your health if you can. Because, as I said yesterday, getting yourself good sleep, good hydration, nutrition is key. Because you've only got one life, and people won't remember what you did at work and how much work you put in and did that. But what they will remember is what you were like outside of work with your friends, with your family and stuff. And if you keep yourself healthy, your kids you'll be in your kids' life a lot longer. And you won't be a burden for them a lot longer when you do it. So I can come at this as probably in a fitness fanatic, from professional sport to PE teaching to doing cover model work. And the big thing for me is when I couldn't train like I used to do, the mental side of it, mental health side of it, I noticed a big difference. So that's where I would say people to prioritise health, especially now that, we've been through like COVID and stuff and with the kids and things coming out. But for your own mental health, it is a huge thing. And you feel so much better when you've done it. And if you can get yourself into little habits of doing it, so you do it pretty much every day, whether it's, in the morning before work, at lunch, after work, whenever it is, so that when you maybe don't do it or don't go there, you become a little bit, you think a bit guilty that you didn't do it. That's kind of the position you want to be in. So it becomes part of your daily routine doing it, and it's not such a hardship.
Yeah, and I think obviously you'll feel the benefits yourself, mentally and physically, if you develop those good habits. And I suppose then, a bit like you were saying, even for your rehab, if you've missed, a day or two, you'll start to feel it. And I suppose, again, if you've developed good habits around kind of sleep and exercise and all of that kind of stuff, if you miss out for a few days, you'll notice it. And that's a warning sign to say, well, you need to reset.
You do. And it's like, I said before, when I didn't do summer rehab when I was really busy, I noticed a difference. So it was like just coming here today, I made sure I did some of my rehab before coming because I knew I'd be quite busy with this and doing all the things that I might not get the chance to do it. So it's putting it into your routine and making it part of your routine and habit.
So what would you say then to employers? And I think employers have in general been more conscious in recent years about work-life balance, but we have a big debate now about, whether it should be working from home or working in the office or hybrid working. And I think there's maybe an impression amongst a lot of employers that maybe employees are kind of taking it a bit easy sometimes by too much flexible working. But what would you say to them about, creating an environment that allows their team members to prioritize their health genuinely, and to be able to build that into their work routine?
Well, that would develop a culture big time within whatever company it is. And what I've seen in the past with different places is that productivity, whatever it is you're doing, is increased if the people that are working for you or employees that are working for you are liking more being at work and feel better about being at work. So you're not getting up in the morning going, oh, crap, I've got to go to work. No one gets up really going, yes, I'm going to work. But if you're getting up going, actually, I'm going to work, it's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you want to be. And this is like sort of the ripple effect in that these small things will hit certain employees in certain ways and develop right through, so you have a culture at the work environment which will encourage that.
And I suppose from your own situation as well, life is a journey. You were saying, I think yesterday, you maybe laughed saying something about that God's
Oh yeah. Oh God, I'm trying to
you do believe in God,
yeah,
but
yeah, that's yeah. I said that, to me, God is a comedian because they have taken the skills from me that made me sort of excel at what I did, the attributes that made me who I was. And also they're trying to take, I said yesterday, and get a bit emotional sometimes doing this, they're trying to take my voice in the process, as your vocal cords are muscle, and with my condition, mine are being adversely affected. And that's where I would say to the audience that I'm in control of how I respond to that. So I have weekly speech therapy sessions to combat that. And again, that is something I'm in control of. And that's how I'm responding to this situation.
And perhaps it's in your nature then to say that God's a comedian, but somebody else might say, well, God is not a very nice God if this is what he or she does.
Well, that's, thankfully, I haven't had it yet where anyone has talked about that afterwards and things. But generally, the way I would say it is trying to say it in a way so it doesn't actually stimulate any debate.
You're not wanting to get into the theological discussions at that point. No,
yeah.
You're just sort of saying, well, look, this is how you've rationalized it.
Yeah.
And
so, just my opinion, that's the way I see it.
And I mean, in some ways, yes, you've had those abilities, taken away from you.
Uh-huh.
But there were other qualities that were there that you'd been developing, as you developed as a sportsman, the resilience that you'd built then, the good habits that you'd built then. In a sense, you've had those and you've been able to take those now and reapply them.
It's almost subconsciously that I've been through sport and different things, developing a sense of resilience. And I would say it's a skill that obviously we can all learn. And
sorry, just to stop you, you say obviously you can all learn, but that is a key point.
Oh, it's definitely people that say in the past and say, they've got resilience. It's a trait they've got. Everyone can develop it. And that's the way I would say in talks, alluding to what I said earlier. The three things that I would say: perspective, response, and purpose. If you focus on those and develop those up, you'll gain this skill of resilience big time. And with me, in terms of the last, 20 years or so, unknowingly developing that skill, I have been able to cope a hell of a lot better with my condition now. Definitely.
Yeah. So it's the perspective, purpose,
And response. Yeah.
Purpose, response,
Yeah.
and perspective. And that, as we were saying earlier on, is something that everybody in your household has learned in different ways. And so you've kids now, who are going off university or wherever, and you see them maybe thinking, actually, they've developed an awful lot along with me in recent years. And people worry about kids these days, and perhaps from an employer's point of view, or people in business, they're worrying about younger employees because perhaps they think they haven't developed resilience. And if they haven't, you're saying, well, they can learn it.
Yeah, and this is one thing I've seen more when I've gone into schools and doing talks, in that, again, sort of in my opinion, that it's something I reckon the next 2, 3, 4 years should be taught in schools, the soft skills, so that they start to gain this skill. It doesn't then rely on someone like me coming in and saying, this is what you should do. They're actually learning as a norm.
Well, hopefully you still get those opportunities because, you've had to not just, reinvent your life. You're having to reinvent your career because one of the things you do now is go and talk to people, offer the advice, give them your first-hand experience and get paid for that because you need to earn a living as well.
Yeah.
But so you should be. And as I was saying, there's plenty of false gurus out there, but you're able to go and deliver training and advice to people. And what's the feedback you get? Because I could see some of it yesterday, and it was impressive.
The feedback is really good, actually. And it sort of spurs me on to keep doing it. And as you said, I've almost sort of reinvented myself in the last several years. Because before I would be known for my physicality, and it's almost right, okay, I can't do that anymore. I'm not going to be known for doing X, Y, and Z. What attributes have I got, and what can I do going forward? And I saw straight away I'd be pretty comfortable standing up and speaking to people. It's probably from playing the cricket and being in different crowds and stuff, and being a teacher and standing up in front of kids and doing things in assemblies and stuff. And I was like, right, I can do that well. How can I marry that in with where I'm at? And that was when I was like, do you know what? I could go out and do this and talk to different places, and it's not going to be that difficult for me because I don't find it difficult to talk about where I'm at and what has happened. I mean, as I was saying sort of yesterday, that you heard that there's times, the odd time in my talks, I've got a bit emotional. And I say that at the start, not to feel embarrassed if I do. I may or may not. You don't know when it sneaks up on you. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
And I thought it was interesting. We were grabbing a coffee before we came here to record this, and somebody else spotted you and came to say hello. Maybe somebody who played sport against you back in the day. Yeah. And maybe that's just something about being back in Belfast, is it, being back home?
I think so, yeah.
And there was a few in the audience yesterday who, again, I think had known you in younger days. And so people do know you from that career, but now people are discovering your skills now in this new.
I think it's quite refreshing, nice in a way, in that when I do the talks, and when I've done them a few times back here in Belfast with different things, that people I know that knew me for different reasons and hear that or see you doing it, they're like, actually, you're really good at doing that. I never sort of expected that. Mm-hmm. So in a way, that's
you can do more than hit a ball. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, look, it's great to have you here. I'm delighted, Andy, that you've been able to take the time and join us. And I know you're heading back across the water again, but you'll be back in Belfast and we'll catch up with you at some
definitely.
stage.
Yeah.
And I've no doubt you'll be getting booked for a few talks because people need to hear more about it and experience it firsthand. I would highly recommend it.
Brilliant.
And perhaps we'll keep an eye on the progress as well. A couple of years' time.
What I do actually on my website, I put everything on there in terms of talks I've been to and stuff like that, and do little rehab and things. So if anyone wants to see the sort of where I'm going or progress with that, just go onto the website. And in terms of contact and stuff, it's through that. I've got obviously my different emails and numbers.
It's all on the website. What's the website address?
The website, just name, andrewpatterson.co.uk.
Great. Well, look, they'll not forget that. Listen, Andrew, many thanks indeed.
Pleasure.